I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So, and we gonna go full crazy.
I'm going crazy.
Pop superstar Justin Bieber was once mentored by Sean Diddy Combs. Now, after Combs' arrest on federal sex trafficking charges, old videos are raising questions about Combs' interactions with Bieber.
Diddy's empire is collapsing in front of the world. And this time it isn't just him standing in the crosshairs. The courtroom shook as the judge allowed prosecutors to expand their scope, dragging in names that Diddy fought for years to keep out of the spotlight, his own sons. The second those words echoed through the room, something inside Diddy broke. He wasn't the smooth mogul. He wasn't the untouchable businessman. He wasn't the architect of Bad Boy Records or the billionaire hip-hop legend. He was just a father.
At this point, Combs is accused of sex trafficking involving one victim, his ex-girlfriend of many years, Cassie Ventura. The indictment says the allegations date back to 2008. Combs has pleaded not guilty, and his lawyer says he hasn't committed any crimes. But there are a lot of people questioning who knew what and when, given that at least part of what Cassie Ventura claimed was backed up by a video obtained by CNN that showed Combs beating Cassie Ventura as the U.S. attorney said she tried to escape one of his freak-off sex parties. And many people are wondering whether other celebrities were a part of these freak-offs, and worse, is it possible that some people, maybe other celebrities, were actually victimized?
Watching his children's names dragged through the mud in a case that had already shredded his reputation, and the sight of it sent him spiraling into fury, panic, and desperation all at once. The prosecutors knew exactly what they were doing. They laid out evidence piece by piece, not just to crush Diddy, but to show that his empire wasn't built alone. They argued it was a machine, a system, and his sons, whether knowingly or unknowingly, were part of it. Emails, contracts, guest lists, surveillance photos. The courtroom projector flickered with evidence tying his son's presence to private events.
Woo. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to be driving this next year.
Now, that video has been viewed more than 5 million times on Justin Bieber's YouTube channel. He was 15 at the time, and he was staying with Combs for 48 hours.
You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know, he did his first album. I did Usher's first album.
Justin Bieber is now a pop megastar. He's loved by fans around the world. In 2009, at the time of this video, though, he wasn't really known. He was just a kid, and his first album was coming out. Bieber is originally from Canada, and Usher signed him to manage his career. Usher actually got his start in the business through Sean Combs. He lived with him for a year when he was 13, and Usher talked about his time living with Combs on The Howard Stern Show back in 2016. He was sent to what was called Puffy Flavor Camp.
And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
in the 90s. Do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Right.
And I saw it. And it was but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, some woman didn't come along.
Parties, even business dealings that prosecutors described as shielding the king while benefiting from the throne. The gallery gasped as familiar images flashed on screen, the glamorous Instagram pictures, the yacht trips, the nightclub entrances. But prosecutors painted a darker picture. One where privilege and wealth were bought not just with music or business, but with silence and complicity. They said the sons weren't random attendees at their father's gatherings, they were fixtures, familiar faces in spaces now under criminal scrutiny. And that was when Diddy exploded. He slammed his fists on the table, screaming at the prosecutors to leave my family out of this. His voice cracked with fury. The judge tried to gavel him down, but he kept raging. Guards stepped forward as his lawyers begged him to sit, whispering frantically, trying to remind him that every word, every gesture, was being broadcast live.
Selling musical artists of all time, had some pretty high-profile influences like R&B superstar Usher, became Justin's mentor, controversial record executive Scooter Braun was his manager as the teen basically shot to stardom. And among his celebrity acquaintances was, of course, music titan Sean Diddy Combs, who had been Usher's mentor in the 90s and early 2000s, and Bieber had spent some time with Combs over the years. Combs' wild party lifestyle has always been something of an open secret, with him often joking about it on daytime and late-night talk shows. But in the last year or so, very, very different. More and more allegations have started to come out against Combs that are really no laughing matter. Civil lawsuits that made rape and extortion claims, rumors that celebrities could be involved in nefarious behavior with Combs behind closed doors, even claims by one man that he had in his possession actual sex tapes featuring Combs and other celebrities. And as we know, Combs is currently on trial in the Southern District of New York on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. By the way, and as week one wraps up, check out all of our Diddy coverage on Long Crime's YouTube channel. We've been breaking down all of the latest developments. So not only do we do daily recaps with our correspondent Elizabeth Milner, who's inside the courtroom because there's no cameras there, but we've also been doing legal analysis with some of our favorite guests, breaking down the big legal issues that are happening every day in that court. So make sure to go check it out. But one of the biggest rumors that has been hanging over the entire Diddy saga was Justin Bieber a victim of his alleged predatory and inappropriate behavior? Well, I'll tell you what, now, as week one of Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial comes to a close, Justin Bieber's camp is finally responding. So his representatives told TMZ, quote, although Justin is not among Sean Combs' victims, there are individuals who were genuinely harmed by him. Shifting focus away from this reality detracts from the justice these victims rightfully deserve. So to talk about this, I want to bring back on former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Nima, so good to see you. Thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar. I want to talk about the timing of this statement from Justin Bieber's camp. It can't be just a coincidence.
No, it can't be, because one of the biggest questions in the Diddy trial is what other celebrities will be named, who participated in the freak-offs and who witnessed the freak-offs. I mean, Diddy's white parties are infamous. And one of the victims that people have been talking about for about a year and a half now has been Justin Bieber. And now finally, after week one of trial, when we know that Don Richard is the next witness and we're going to start hearing who the government thinks is going to help corroborate their case, we are not going to hear from Justin Bieber. And it really goes back to a video when he was about 15 years old, when
dissected in real time by millions watching, but Diddy didn't care. His mask had slipped. This wasn't about business anymore. This was about blood. His children's names were on trial now, and for the first time, he realized the system was swallowing not just him, but everything tied to him. The media frenzy was immediate. Headlines screamed across every platform. Diddy's sons dragged into explosive court case. Social feeds flooded with side-by-side clips of Diddy's meltdown and his sons' carefully curated influencer lifestyles. The hashtags burned across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, hashtag Diddy Sons, hashtag Bad Boy Bloodline, hashtag Family on Trial. Fans argued endlessly. Were the boys innocent bystanders caught in their father's implosion? Or did they benefit too much from the empire to claim ignorance? Brands scrambled behind the scenes. Deals tied to Diddy's sons, endorsements, appearances, modeling gigs, even reality TV rumors froze overnight. Executives panicked. What liability does this carry? One leaked email read,
Diddy's team wants him transferred to a different jail in New Jersey, but Judge Carter says it's up to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to make that decision. So for now, MDC is where Diddy calls home. It's usually where defendants are housed after their arrest and as they're awaiting trial in either Manhattan or Brooklyn. But the issues at MDC are so severe that some judges even refuse to send defendants there at all. But even with its less than desirable conditions, MDC is no stranger to high-profile inmates. Previously housing R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who's actually there right now. Bankman-Fried was convicted of fraud and money laundering last November after the collapse of his cryptocurrency exchange, FTX. And as it happens, Bankman-Fried and Diddy are being housed in the same part of MDC, a unit for inmates that requires special protection. That's people like Diddy or Bankman-Fried who are high-profile names, but it also cares for inmates who may need protection as they assist with ongoing investigations in open cases. Since Diddy's move to this area of MDC, there are reports that he's spoken briefly to his children over the phone. Diddy has 7 children, ranging in age from 33 to 23 months old. According to reports, Diddy is concerned about how his kids are handling his arrest and detainment. And meanwhile, they're allegedly in a state of crisis after only experiencing Diddy as a loving, devoted father. Meanwhile, there are other reports that Diddy has stopped eating. This could be because he isn't enjoying the food, but it also could be because he's paranoid that someone is out to get him and may slip poison into his food. But is that likely or even possible? And what are the perils of MDC, especially for a high-profile defendant like Diddy? Here's where we have to bring in criminal defense attorney Imran Ansari, who represented other celebs like 50 Cent or Harvey Weinstein. He says Diddy's arrest wasn't surprising.
I think we all saw the writing on the wall with Diddy in terms of the civil case leading to a federal investigation. We saw the raids on his residence. And I think that the indictment that we see now wasn't so much a surprise. And it was something that we expected arrest was going to come down the line.
Now he has been arrested. He's been denied bail, so he is behind bars in Brooklyn. And there's been a lot of articles about this. His attorneys are saying that the conditions there at MDC are horrific, horrendous. They're not appropriate to stay in. What is your experience there? Is it really as horrendous as they're saying?
I've had many clients who were housed in MDC Brooklyn, and I can tell you the reports that the facility is something that is less than desirable is 100% accurate. There's been a lot of reports of it being below standard in terms of prison standards. And of course, a prison isn't meant to be a comfortable place, but of course, they have to provide the basic human rights to their inmates. And MDC Brooklyn has been plagued with overcrowding, with violence, with poor food, with poor cleanliness. And P. Diddy, who is in a protective custody unit, is still experiencing all the bad things that MDC Brooklyn has to offer, and it doesn't have a lot to offer in terms of comfort or things that an inmate would be looking for.
Collaborations in fashion houses, sports teams, and luxury partnerships all went dark. It wasn't just Diddy in the blast zone anymore. His sons were now radioactive by association. And the silence from the family only made things worse. No statements, no interviews, no Instagram lives to clear the air, just silence, which in the court of public opinion doesn't read as dignity, it reads as guilt. The longer they stayed quiet, the more the public filled the void with their own conclusions. Witnesses began to testify about seeing the sons at gatherings prosecutors called the hub of Diddy's shadow empire. One former security guard claimed they were shielded but aware. Another insider suggested they acted as the friendly faces to put guests at ease before the darker side of events unfolded. Whether those claims hold weight or not, the damage was already done. The sons' names were in the record. The association was stamped. And Diddy knew it. That's why he raged so violently. Because for decades he believed his wealth and his power could protect his family from the fallout of his actions. He built walls of NDAs, armies of lawyers, networks of influence. But now, in a courtroom stripped of glitz and shield, those walls were crumbling. His sons were no longer safe behind the curtain. They were center stage, under the same spotlight that was already burning him alive.
Lil Rod accuses Diddy of sexual assault, writing he was, quote, the victim of constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching of his anus by Mr. Combs. He also alleges Diddy and his team were grooming Lil Rod to engage in gay sex. Lil Rod further alleges that Diddy forced him to have sex with prostitutes and even drugged Lil Rod to get him to comply. On top of these sexual assault allegations, Lil Rod's lawsuit also alleges that Diddy ran a gun and drug trafficking scheme. He says there are hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity because Diddy apparently forced Lil Rod to constantly record him. The allegations continue, saying that Diddy covered up multiple shootings. To start, there's the New York nightclub shooting in 1999. Lil Rod alleges Diddy required his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez to transport his illegal firearm into the NYC nightclub. The court docs also allege Diddy forced his then-artist Shine to assume responsibility for the shooting of several individuals. Lil Rod's civil suit points to another alleged cover-up too. this time for a shooting outside Diddy's Chalice Studios on September 12, 2022. According to court docs, Diddy, his son Justin, and Justin's friend referred to as G were all there when things got heated. Lil Rod heard multiple gunshots ring out, and then he found G on the bathroom floor in the fetal position. Lil Rod says he was bleeding out of his hip and leg area. After that, Mr. Combs gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He also forced Mr. Jones to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. So that specific allegation involves Diddy's son Justin, but another allegation and entirely separate civil suit involves his other son, Christian, or King Combs. Grace Omar K alleges that Christian Combs sexually assaulted her on a yacht in December 2022, and all this was facilitated by Diddy. That suit was filed in April, and in May, former model Crystal McKinney filed suit against Diddy too, alleging he drugged and sexually assaulted her in his New York studio back in 2003. Diddy's former bad boy artists have spoken out too, including members of Danity Kane, the girl group that Diddy helped form on MTV's Making the Band 3. Singer Aubrey O'Day alleges Diddy underpaid members of the band and later offered her the publishing rights to her songs if she signed an NDA. And there was a catch to that.
And in order to get that, I have to release him for any claims or wrongdoings or actions prior to the date of the release. I have to sign an NDA that I will never disparage Puff, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, or Justin Combs Music, or EMI, or Sony ever in public.
Just this month, Aubrey O'Day's Danity Kane bandmate Dawn Richard filed suit against Diddy. She alleged Diddy verbally and sexually abused her, all with the intentional infliction of emotional distress. There are so many layers to this story, dozens of allegations, civil suits, and criminal charges. And all this while Diddy sits behind bars in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. But let's begin with those federal charges. Here's former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi.
Outside the courtroom, the conversation turned brutal. Some fans argued this was unfair. Children shouldn't pay for their father's sins. Others countered, these weren't children anymore. These were grown men who lived lavishly off the empire that prosecutors now claimed was rotten to its core. Where do you draw the line between innocent family and complicit beneficiaries? Journalists wasted no time digging deeper. Old interviews resurfaced where Diddy proudly said his sons were learning the business. Tabloid clips emerged showing them flaunting wealth at events now alleged to be funded by questionable dealings. Paparazzi shots of them on luxury trips recirculated with captions asking, "Paid for by what?" Each image became another piece of circumstantial evidence in the public eye, feeding the narrative that this wasn't just a father falling, it was an entire dynasty being pulled down with him. And the music industry trembled, because Diddy's sons weren't just famous by association, they were rising stars in their own right. Their careers were intertwined with others. Their collaborations stretched into fashion, sports, media.
The federal indictment is problematic for Diddy.
It lays out what they believe is a pattern of illegal activity, all in the names and the furtherance of the Combs enterprise. I think it lacks some details, but we have, because this is an ongoing investigation and because it's sort of been in the public sphere for a while, we have more details than we normally would. They've laid out a pattern of conspiracy and racketeering that they've charged him with. But part of that is obviously that one of the victims is his ex-girlfriend Kathy, who filed this major lawsuit last year in November against him. But we kind of have the details from that lawsuit as well, so we can kind of insert those as really the jump off point to how we got here now today. But he's got some real legal challenges ahead of him, absolutely.
You brought up a good point about the pattern, showing that Diddy had a pattern to break the law in this many ways. And it all goes back kind of to Cassie and the civil suit that she filed. Obviously, they had a relationship for several years. She alleges some pretty serious accusations against him. So how important is Cassie going to be in regards to this federal case?
Well, she's going to be incredibly important in terms of her lawsuit is really what opened up the public's attention to it. And so that's really what got everyone going. That's what got the authorities looking into her more. I mean, it was only a year ago that he got the key to the city here in New York. And now here he is indicted in the Southern District, right? So what happened in a year for someone to have fallen so far and not just got the keys to the city a year ago. He was what was he? He was given like the Lifetime Achievement Award in the VMAs. That was just last year too. I mean, this is someone who is at the top of the public sphere in terms of reverence, in terms of respect, in terms of what they mean to the city and to the community. And for it to turn around this fast, I think we have to look directly at Cassie and her lawsuit filed on November 16th. And even though they settled it a day later, again, the details of what was alleged got out there. And then what that really did, just like the Me Too movement, it started other people who are alleged victims of his thinking, well, maybe now is my time to come forward. If in fact that they felt threatened by Diddy, if in fact they were coerced not to say anything through violent threats, through physical threats, through emotional threats, and potentially of having whatever acts they committed with Diddy being recorded and even having those used against them as electronic threats. After Cassie's lawsuit, they started to come out, and then you saw another lawsuit in December, and then another one and another one. And so there were a couple that came out that really started steamrolling this sort of this change in a public opinion of him, just like happened with R. Kelly, although these are separate charges and they have not been proven like R. Kelly's. But just like in R. Kelly, it took the public a little while to kind of get around this notion of this pop superstar who we've grown to love for decades. And
artists who once called them friends stopped picking up calls. Stylists and designers quietly canceled fittings. Nightclubs that once rolled out red carpets shut their doors. No one wanted to be the next headline, caught partying with Diddy's sons after allegations. Inside court, prosecutors pressed the point relentlessly. This wasn't just one man acting alone. They argued, this was a structure, a family, an empire, and everyone benefited. They didn't outright accuse the sons of crimes, but they didn't need to. Just linking their names to the narrative was enough. The judge allowed it. The defense objected furiously, but the record stood. The sons were now officially part of the trial's scope. And Diddy? He sat there, shaking with rage, his face twisted, his fists clenched. He tried to shout, but guards kept him pinned. It was the image of a man realizing his legacy wasn't just burning, his bloodline was being scorched with it. The fallout won't stop here. Legal analysts predict prosecutors could expand investigations, potentially dragging the sons into depositions, subpoenas, even testimonies. If immunity deals are offered, insiders might flip, revealing details that drag the family even deeper. And if even one allegation sticks, the dynasty could shatter completely.
And there's another video showing a birthday celebration. It shows an exchange on one of Bieber's birthdays. And finally, the fourth video making the rounds was recorded 3 years ago. Let's play that again. Some speculated that Combs was looking to see whether Bieber was wearing a wire when he patted him down. It seemed a little awkward for sure. Around this time last year, Combs and Bieber collaborated on the song Moments for Diddy's The Love album, Off the Grid. This was, of course, before the first allegations made by Cassie Ventura surfaced. Combs settled the suit with her in a day, and then the federal raid happened in March of this year. So far, Justin Bieber, like many people who know Combs, has been silent. There may be a good reason for that. He just became a father for the first time. A source close to Bieber told People he's aware of Diddy's arrest and the allegations, but added, it's not anything that he wants to focus on, though. The insider, likely Bieber's publicist, continued, saying Bieber's been in a happy bubble since baby Jack was born, and he just wants to focus on being a great dad and husband. That is also completely understandable. Justin Bieber's a first-time father. He should want to enjoy this time and cherish every moment of it. But that hasn't stopped the chatter. This TikTok video from Bieber's father-in-law, actor Stephen Baldwin, has just added to the speculation about Diddy and Bieber.
You have heard the expression, the calm before the storm. There is always a calm before the storm, but then so is there another calm after the storm. There's a calm and then a storm and then another calm.
So you get the gist. And no one knows whether Stephen Baldwin was actually referring to the Sean Combs situation or his son-in-law, Justin Bieber, but that video